Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's our chess show on Pot TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today we have Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
It's
It's
our pleasure.
first day of June, new summer. I got my grades in last Sunday, so I have some new freedom to do things, including things I promised people in FIDE.
So
Uh,
nice. That's great. Great.
mhm.
So right now we are witnessing probably the top tournament of this year. I'm talking about live classical chess. There are not too many tournaments of that kind, especially
Oh,
speaking
my
about
apologies.
the quality of the people involved. They're all top world grandmasters, including, um, well, the former world champion Magnus Carlsen, although he's still considered to be the greatest player of all time, but not current world champion. The current world champion, as we know, is a Chinese gentleman, Ding Liren, and there are some rumors that he is no longer happy to be chess world champion, so he wants to now, I don't know, retire or take it easy, or we don't know all that. So when everybody will stop playing and retire, then it will be probably a time for finally for Nepomniachtchi to become world champion, just simply by default. There will no one to play with, so there might be something what we are looking in the near future. However, this tournament in Norway, it's very well presented, a nice commentaries, beautiful production, and it's been shown on first TV channel in Norway with full length. The game, which lasts, say, on average 5 hours long, it's been shown live on Norwegian first channel. So this is quite remarkable. I'm not sure what other country in the world would show the chess tournament in its entirety on their main channel. Ken, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, my apologies. I'm having someone repair a windshield, and there was a call about that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right, so I missed the thread of what you're saying. It's like in a simultaneous exhibition, the person doing it needs to see the opponent make the previous move to retune into what the position is.
Well, wait, to recap is very simple. I was talking about this tournament in Norway as a premier event of the year,
Yeah,
where
my reasons.
it's incredibly strong field. It's very difficult to imagine to make it any stronger with the not the world champion anymore, but still probably the strongest player of all times, Magnus Carlsen, is playing. And what I mentioned is that current champion Din Liren, he's thinking about retiring from chess. He's getting bored with chess, and if he will retire, and Magnus Carlsen already did, and a few other top grandmasters will retire, so slowly but surely, Nepomniachtchi will become a world champion. Simply by default, there will be no one to play with, and so he will become probably the newest and maybe the latest in history world champion. That's probably what's going to happen. In the
Yeah,
meantime, what I mentioned is that this tournament is shown in its entirety on the first channel of Norway TV.
yeah, that's good.
Five
Yeah.
hours with all the commentaries and so on, and it's very exciting. A lot of people are actually watching chess. Some people may not even know the moves, but it's very exciting, top-notch production. What do you think about it, Ken?
Oh, I'm very glad to see it. I've been traveling, so I haven't had time to tune into that aspect of it. One thing, the games certainly have been very exciting. One odd feature is that it's a lump sum to 40 moves and then no lump sum after that, just
Yeah.
10-second rapid style increment. So you have to budget your time differently. And the whole thing is allowing only about 135 minutes to turn 60 instead of 150 as in the FIDE time control, and 195 minutes as in the Vicon Say time control. So that makes for perhaps for games like the one we're going to see, where You plan very carefully, and then the game gets into its rough and tumble stage. You might not have as much time to work out what you need to do as you expect. So perhaps that's adding to the excitement. The other thing adding to the excitement, of course, is that if the main game is drawn, then it goes straight into an Armageddon game. And Magnus Carlsen made an interesting statement in round two, or three, after he and Hikaru Nakamura drew in 15 minutes in a martial attack line that was probably mostly theory. Actually, it was the key equalizer move from Black and Stone. And they said, oh, that was a bit of cowardice by us, I guess. But gave Nakamura white in the Armageddon, and Carlsen outplayed him comprehensively with the black pieces. So anyway, so action there. And that action took place while a lot of the other games were still in their late opening stages. So probably there is a lot for the audience at all times in the broadcast. Let me mention one other thing. This tournament is 2767 average rating, which puts it in the upper end of category 21, almost category 22, which would be 2776. But perhaps it really is a category 22 rating, because one of the things I'm analyzing now is the extent of a general deflation in FIDE ratings. And that may percolate all the way up to the top. Simply put, if you, as a 2,700 player, play a 2,500 player whose rating is deflated, then you lose some of the benefit of that difference. The knock-on is only going to be a handful of points by the time it gets up to you, if it was 50 points for the 2,500 player. But still, those little handful of points makes the difference between 2767 and 2776. And that, in fact, may be the final obstacle to Magnus Carlsen's stated goal of getting his rating up to 2,900. You can't do it amid a downdraft of deflation. So I will measure that, but the fact of the faster time control throwing a monkey wrench of comparison into my metrics on the tournament.
Yeah, of course, it's a problem. I wish there would be no increments period, and we would come down to normal time control when there is a set, say, 2 hours for 40 minutes and then 1 hour for 20 minutes and no increments whatsoever, because the increments is so artificial part of chess. It's people who are short on time, they can start building up their time, but moving on increment immediate moves, repeating position here and there, and all of a sudden, instead of 10 seconds, they have now 10 minutes. And
I find that interesting.
Incredible.
Gamble. Do you take the risk of making an inferior move now to have more thinking time later?
Or sometimes you're forced to do it. Sometimes you have no choice. And you are building your time almost by default because you can't afford to think. I think, the increment appeared because of two reasons. Number one, the new chess clock technology, which provided for it, because 30 years ago there was no such technology, period. So even if you wanted to do something with increments, there was no technology that could provide for it. Number two, when Ilyumzhinov cut down the time in his world championships with this system where people would lose much and be taken out. So he wanted to shorten, and he did, time control. So grandmasters appealed that they have to be compensated for the time that's being taken away from their clocks, and therefore they came with the idea, and technologically it was already available at the time, the increments. And the increments completely changed the game. There is no more side notes. I'm talking about real side note. I'm talking about this completely, it took a soul out of the chess game. It's now becoming much more Okay, I know this line, and you know this line. Okay, let's play a few more moves. Okay, you know this moves, and I know this move. So what do you want? You wanna try to win against me? Oh, you don't want to win against me. So then it's a draw. It's completely different process.
Mhm.
However, Ken, why don't we look at the game that you did?
Yes, so let's look at the headlining game from the event. I'll present my screen. And so, um, okay, let's see. So, entire screen here. And okay, let's see if this works. Whoops. Oh, okay, that's right. I have to click that. All right, so let's see now. You should see my screen dominated
Yes.
by the game. Okay, so I'm showing this in the arena. So now Caruana as white played e4, which seems to be becoming more the move of choice nowadays. And Carlson, when Trump was elected, played the Trumpowski. When he was in Poland, he played the Polish defense. So now in his own native Norway, he plays the surprise. Oh, the French defense. Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Well, that attracted some interest. There are people on Twitter who have said that this game is proof that the French defense loses for black. I don't think we need to go that far. Nonetheless, this is a very typical for the case where black does not try to react in the center with c5 getting an isolated d pawn right away, but instead plays a very typical French defense setup. White has a better center. Black has activity on the queen side. White is a little less, will be a little less developed. So there are moves that are very refined, and this is one of them. White could also play queen d2. The whole battle is about the dark squares on the diagonal c5 and d4, and whether white can maintain e5 as a bulwark in the position. Because now white supports the pawn chain. As a kid, I read Nimzovich's My System, and I was really enthralled by the idea of pawn chains. And I read Pawn Power in Chess too, so I learned about lever attacks on them. And black would love to be able to play the b7 pawn to b5, hopping over his queen, and then to b4. So white makes now even more of a pawn chain. Look at that. It's a pawn pyramid. So white now develops. Now, here's the thing. White's a little less developed, but white's pieces have more space. Can black's pieces spring into action, especially in a way that enables the c8 bishop to enter the game? What's more developed in black's position are the rook, and one could say also the queen. So let's see. So black starts, Carlson starts relieving the central tension, and then gives a check since white is not yet castled. And white has to be very careful because a queen interposition could be met by bishop b4. This queen d2, bishop b4 would force white to play knight c3 anyway. So knight c3 happens, and now black's pieces start filtering into white's position. It's you have to, I think, have prepared this in order to feel confident playing the way white does. Because what Caruana does here actually surprised me. Over the board, my reaction might have been to try to castle and get out of dodge. I'm not trying to calculate c4, but anyway, white first gives up the center, okay, and then plays b3. Now, I was looking at the game with my engine, and b3 was narrowly the best move over there was one other more normal move, less weakening move. Let's see. I have Houdini here. So just an interesting choice of older engine here. Let's see what Houdini. So Houdini says castles. Maybe that, I think that was the other move, and it's more likely the move that I would have played. Anyway, so now I'll play b3. So this is now. I think one really needs to prepare to think that this move is viable because it's weakening this diagonal. It weakens the c3 square. Black is very quickly able to put pressure on that. So play the two moves. Now you have a rook bearing down on the c3 square. And in fact, white is not able to prevent the center from collapsing if black so elects. And this is where, again, it comes down to calculating concrete variations. And I'd really like to know how much of this was preparation. Now, Houdini is saying Queen E1, and it's giving the same variation that Stockfish gave at the time. So this is a very interesting variation where the ultimate point in the position, I think, is something that was realized during the game too. Comes down to the strength of White's F pawn and White's knight on the E file. So Queen D2. Let's play the same line with Queen D2. Okay. Now, what you have to calculate here is that black can actually capture this pawn. Okay. So make it a new variation. Okay. Oh, here I see. Okay. So here this does not work. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so let's see. So why doesn't this work? Bishop takes d4. Queen takes d4. And I guess you cannot, let's see what the simple reason you can't capture this. I guess b4 is happening. Yes, b4. Yes, is winning something. Okay, all right, so that's interesting. So whereas if White had played Queen e1, okay, White. So I had a mistaken idea when I was following this game before. Now, in this case here, because White does not have the queen observing b4, now this works. And this is what both Houdini and Stockfish say would be White's best line. And what happens, this looks, again, a little risky for White. But what happens is that the F pawn on F5 is, let's see, or knight D4 actually first. Okay, so there was a line with White playing F5 instead here, but knight D4. This is judged to be slightly better for White. Oh, I don't know. Black's rooks look very active. Okay, so that's case where White's center falls apart. Now, Queen D2 holds the center because black cannot play the same combination. Okay, so now, again, now I remember this. According to both Stockfish and Houdini, black plays the best move, coming back with the bishop to swing it to b4 and put more pressure on c3. The lines where black tries to collapse White's center do not work. So point of White's Queen d2 was able to hold the center. And this is even though the computer says that White could have ceded the center and still been ahead. Okay, so anyway, so now White overprotects d4. This is really pretty. Okay, so now both White's knights are protecting d4, and White has a very slight advantage according to the computer, but nothing terrible. Now comes the f5 move that I was talking about, which can be followed up by placing a knight to f4. So if black captures this right away first, then actually bishop, oh, sorry, if black captures this right away, bishop f4 wins the exchange. Sorry, I knew that at the time also. So that's the key hidden point of White's f5 move. So black, therefore, does counterattack. Okay. White captures, and now White's knight comes in. Okay. So now it's a question of how to judge this position. Computer says White has about a half pawn, maybe tending toward 3/4 of a pawn advantage. And optically, that's fairly clear. Black's d5 pawn has more going on than White's d4 pawn with vulnerability. White's knights are better than black's knights. White's bishop is slightly better than black's bishop. But black's rooks are ganged up on the c file, but there's not as much going on maybe with the c file. Whereas, and this is the ultimate theme of White's winning the game, the E and F files, if they're not opposed, can be the vehicle for an attack on black's king.
Now the black is threatening now knight c2, attacking rook on e1 and pawn on d4. And
Right,
if rook d1, then knight e3.
right.
So there are something to mind
Yeah,
about.
let's see why black can't do that. The reason I think is the fact that black's bishop on f5. So this is another example of concrete calculation. I'll try it before seeing what the engine says. But if knight c2, white can consider knight takes d5.
Yes.
Okay, so if black captures here, then gosh, you can take the knight and attack
Yeah.
black's rook, and black captures the bishop, and white's knight is vacated if white takes that. Wow, this is complicated. You can also capture black's rook, but I think taking the knight and threatening bishop d5 check is most of the point.
Yes.
Yeah. So this needs calculation, but I think white wins a pawn at the end of all this. Black
Yeah.
loses both knights and a rook. White loses the rook, the bishop, and the knight, and white comes out and a pawn ahead. So let's see now if the computer agrees with me. So knight c2 is a new variation. Yeah, it does say knight takes d5 after a little bit of hesitation. However, after knight takes e1, the knight captures the rook, is what the computer says to do. Let's see if what was wrong with my calculation here. Nope, that gives black the advantage after all. So it looks like that what I didn't calculate was that knight e3 is annoying.
Yep.
Because so if rook e1, or the knight c2, and the knight's protected. Yes, so that's a knight has to hop here. Okay, so it's actually knight takes c7 that white plays. And now let's see again. Pieces are even for the most part. And if knight takes g2, the ultimate point is that this loose bishop. And now, okay, so now white is going to be a pawn ahead. All right, so black did not go in for that. Black instead played g6, giving some luft for the king, and more importantly, shoring up black's loose bishop on f5. Okay, and white is able to drive the bishop away, and the bishop really has no good square. So in fact, Carlsen sacrifices a pawn, or potentially sacrifices a pawn. And if Caruana had taken the pawn right away, then black can just capture this pawn. Okay, black's okay. All right, I'm being silly. So now, incidentally, what the computer sees as white's best move is to play g5, really clamping down on black's king side, where white's going to play a knight to g4 and come in either on h6 or f6, both of which would be able to set up the kind of mating combination that occurs later in the game. So this gives white a slight advantage. This also gives white an advantage, maybe a little bit less pronounced. So white plays a3, simply moving the pawn that was attacked. And now here is where Carlsen loses the thread of the game, and black collapses surprisingly quickly here. And that's an aspect of the position. You can play a game like this, and okay, wait, I have to move. I'm sorry. Pause. Okay.
I'm wondering if black should try knight c2 still, although rook e4 is quite unpleasant. Then knight a3, and white would have an advantage here. So on the other hand, I'm wondering what did Carlsen play in this position?
Okay, my apologies. This clashed with something else happening, and maybe you can edit this.
So knight
okay.
c2 is still not working, even in this position, no?
Yeah, let's see. Knight c2. I think black just has to be careful with his king, and I think that's the old. So rook e4. No, knight c2. I'm sorry, I lost train of my thought. Knight c2 is the move that black should play. And now, interestingly enough, what the computer says to do is to make a defensive move that is targeted about preventing white's knight on e5 from coming into black's position. So if white now plays g5, and then black can play here, and black has a counter
And what
attack.
about instead of rook d8, is knight d4 possible with then rook e5?
Well, let's
If
see, knight d4 right away. Let's see. Okay, that's
yeah,
true. Um, and yes, it is also possible right away. Yes, in fact,
sure,
this is an even position.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
just,
so that's right. So knight c2. So let's see. So let's see, we could figure out what Carlsen was afraid of. Well, rook takes e4 is the move.
yeah, that's
Just,
natural
just
move.
just to dot the I and cross the T, though, if you play knight takes a3 to win a pawn, then g5. Well, it's not super strong, but it says that white now has a very strong initiative. In fact, what happens, according to the computer, is white plays this in order to um, in order to
Well, grab
win back the rook
space.
that way. Yeah. Now knight e6 check is threatened, and I don't know. Is this such a strong advantage for white? It's unclear.
Mm,
Um, but in any event, so what's interesting about this though is the way that Carlsen, playing what seemed to be natural defensive moves, actually collapses very quickly. So he played the knight back to here. Okay. Um, white captured on e4, so now white's pawn ahead, and black played natural counterattack. Now, what black should have done was capture on f4 to bring the other knight into the game. Okay.
very natural move. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, and then bring the knight to d5.
And
And
then maybe exchange a pair of rooks, and you should be okay.
yeah, again, this has to be very concrete. For instance, the computer says black should play knight c3, a move I
Mhm.
see, or it did briefly say knight c3, but no, rook c3 is obviously the consequent move. And black trading a pair of rooks relieves the pressure on the king, and black probably has enough counterplay here. Okay, so anyway, so Carlsen played more directly with rook c3, but now it's quite possible that Carlsen overlooked this move. I haven't seen the interviews after that, but this is a really nice shot. Um, so if black takes, then both black rooks are in danger. White plays this, attacking one rook, and then will play to e7, forking the king and winning the other rook.
No
Okay,
defense.
right. So black has to rely on the principle that knights defend each other, but the problem is that this is actually now going to become a mating net very soon. So white simply plays e5. Again, it's possible simply to underestimate the effect of a move like that. So what is happening? First of all, can black defend the knight
Rook
on
d5.
on b5? Well, the answer is no, because it turns out this is just winning a piece. And knight takes f6 check and capture the rook. So um, so therefore black went knight c3, but now black's king is denuded. So white is able to start a mating attack right away. And in fact, Carlsen resigned. Houdini only says 2-point advantage. Stockfish sees this as +5 for white already really quickly. So the problem is that, well, if you go here, you step into discover check and lose the pawn. If you go here, this is going to be mate in a few moves. Let's see. Was that the best move? No, actually, no. The computer says d5 is even better. So among the other ills in black's position, white has a passed d pawn that is on the loose. So and king h8 really does walk into rook e7 and mate.
Mm-hmm.
So so Carlsen gave up. So this was a really sudden collapse for black. But it's Caruana's first win over Carlsen in classical chess since Norway Chess in 2015. Of course, in the World Championship match, the classical games, all 12 of them were draws.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very interesting. Ken, I always wanted to ask you one question. We have
mhm,
a financial show. Actually, Jim participates in it too, and there are a couple of other people. And
mhm.
last last show on Wednesday, we discussed so-called efficient market theory. You're familiar with such thing.
Yes, I know efficient market theory. Yes.
Okay, and we were trying to apply it to chess as well, efficient chess theory. Well, all chess theory is supposed to be efficient, and if everything would be so simple, there would be no point to play a game because everybody would know what to play in this position, and it would lead either to a draw or to small advantage for white or maybe black, and so on. But yet people play and enjoy playing the games, and nobody cares so much about efficient market theory. Now, in a market, an application to efficient market theory to actual market, there we had unreconcilable differences. Because my point is, if everything what is there to know about certain stock doesn't matter, let's say General Motors, everything is on the table. Especially now in times of internet, you can look at information. If you have 10 minutes available, you'll find everything in 10 minutes. If you have 10 hours available, you'll find even more. But everything, whatever you'll find about that stock, already known to billions of people, and they all have access to internet and so on and on. So if that works out, let's see, General Motors is priced at $33, and all well-known information is information of that stock price. So what's the point to buy that stock or sell that stock if that's a fair value in accordance with sufficient market theory? Then why would you trade the market at all?
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's not efficiency. Maybe a mid-bounded rationality. That's the thing. Stock. You don't know the future, so um, it is remarkable to me that stock prices are as liquid as they are, and that movements are most often fairly small. So I'd say that efficient market theory is working. Is another point that the market as a whole is thousands of stocks, so you can get unusual events every day in some of them, which you would ascribe to market inefficiencies. I think there's also the fact that computer trading has smoothed out a lot of inefficiencies in the market in a way that perhaps is less gives less advantage or less opportunity to the human day trader. Um, anyway, as far as turning this back in chess, yeah, some of the long opening lines in some of these games have given me the opinion that, wow, we don't really need to play the game. Certainly, Nakamura Carlsen from before, and I can show that
Okay.
martial attack game if we want to see it.
You're,
So
you're talking about classical game, yeah?
the classical game first, and then the Armageddon. I can whip through the Armageddon because whipping through it is what really gives the impression. But
Mhm.
here, so this is a okay. All right, so now, so you see the screen again.
No?
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Okay.
Right.
So Nakamura is white, Carlsen black. This time Carlsen plays the e pawn two squares. Maybe the first game was a mouse slip. Okay. Anyway, and we enter not the Berlin defense, but the classical Rui Lopez. And a lot of lines like D3 for white in this position, which we saw in another recent game, are to avoid the martial attack. But Hikaru goes right into the teeth of the martial attack,
Hmm.
D5, which is a good move for black, um, although not playing the way Marshall intended with knight f6, but rather playing c6, and black is able to build up a little more slowly. So d4 or d3 are the two major branches for white in this position, and Kara played d3. And so now we're going to see the kind of resource that black has. Okay, black's attack is gathering, threatening the pawn on h2 has to be defended. And now black has a nice clamp on the light squares. White tries to fight it by bringing the knight up to the center. And now black has a liquidating combination that works because of a really nifty trick that is, known to theory. So white's knight is pinned. Okay, so white obviously has to save the knight, and the way white saves the knight is by a counterattack on black's pieces. The reality is, after black takes the knight, white's pawn on e4 will then be pinning black's knight on d5. So white has an extra tempo to unpin by protecting the rook on e1, and white goes ahead and does that. Okay, so black captures here, black captures this, and now it looks like white is going to capture on d5, and white's bishop will enter the game in a very strong manner. And in fact, black might even have to worry about back rank problems. So rook takes f4 is known not to equalize. Black still winds up a pawn down, but there's a fantastic shot that does equalize in this position, and that's bishop f3 check. So that rook takes f4 comes with check and eliminates the white pawn on e4, which will equalize the pawns. So white still has a little chance to gain an initiative if black has to make a strict choice between whether the rook will be on the e file or on the fourth rank, but black does not have to make a strict choice. So they just play like this, and the game was a draw. See, 155 and 154 showing on the clocks. There was no increment. This happened within 10 minutes, 10 minutes and a few seconds of the game. So obviously the play was well known to both players. So on to the Armageddon. And this was the Armageddon. So slower than most Armageddon. White has 10 minutes, black has 7. One of the things that FIDE asked me to do was see if my theory informs the question of what are the fair Armageddon time controls. And I did not have a chance to do that. I did referee a paper once on this subject that I felt gave as good an answer as any. Okay, so King's Gambit. Okay, so this already... and not only that, the Allgaier variation. So this game could have been played 150 years ago. So we'll see now. So black already has a slight advantage according to the engines, and I don't know what Queen D2 is doing. I'm just going to play the effect of the game. You'll see that white never quite equalizes. White never gets harmony in his position. There are inaccuracies by both sides. And right now at G3, I thought Nakamura was going to come out of this all right. F5 instead of D5 was technically an inaccuracy. But it's still the case that black just has black's better developed. Black has a freer position. So now this move threatens queen takes h2. There's going to be interesting symmetry of that. So Hikaru defends it, but that gives black time then to keep up the initiative in white's position. It's amazing that the e4 pawn has survived as long as it has, but it's still going to survive because f3 is weak. So white gets the queen out of the fork, and now this happened, and white's pawn structure is ugly. However, white is... threatening the pawn on a7, and actually I meant to show that before. So the real question is, why doesn't white capture this? And the answer is, even though it's threatening mate in 1, it really does not do much. Black just plays bishop c6. Oops. Oh, okay, I lost control of the screen for some reason. Here we go. Black just plays bishop c6, and black's king is perfectly safe on d7. No white pieces can attack it. And
the knight on g3 is hanging.
Is loose. That's loose. The white losing is not going to enjoy having lost the c pawn. So white recaptured, but now this is actually just statically very bad for white. And now white lost that pawn. There wasn't any. Why wasn't there a good way to defend it? Well, B3, neither B3 nor A3 are very inspiring ways to defend that pawn. In fact, the computer wants white to play King A1 and give it up that way. So, and now this rest is just an execution. And Nakamura resigned. So Black actually won the game in Armageddon when all you need to do is draw to win the match. So that was, it was quite a thumping. So Carlsen hasn't lost his fire yet.
No, far from it. He's actually winning now almost any tournament that he enters, which is not sensation in any case, because he's absolutely incredible player. Still is, and probably will be for many years to come. Ken, thank you so much for today's program, and I'm looking forward to see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.